So you were telling me off camera there was a little extra info about that story when you were a little boy.
Oh yes, the school assembly, and I was singing, and then they asked me to. I was summoned to the group after I did it. 2 or 3 encores, which I was accustomed to when I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old. Remember, my name was Hector Singh. Right? When I was Hector Singh, and I walked up to the group, which consisted of this little black man, not with dark glasses. I realized he was blind. Turns out he was the composer of the song I was singing. I had no idea that it was an inappropriate song for a 10-year-old boy to sing, but I sung it with swing, man. And that was W.C. Handy, the father of the blues. Little did I know, my mother and father had never heard of him. My teacher probably never heard of him. Nobody knew. Nobody. Years later, I realized that person, oh, that was Mr. Handy. Somehow I got that. Wait a minute, that was him, himself. And I was singing St. Louis Woman. That's what I was singing.
Wow, as a 10-year-old.
10-year-old, baby. Who knew, right? Not knowing is a very important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something else that I wanted to mention that'll be useful. Historically. When I was forced to direct for the great Mr. Lear, volunteered. Says, all right, Norman, I will do this. I think it's and thanks for the opportunity, and I'm ready to go. First day on the job, first day as the director. I'm there with my assistant director, Vincente, good guy. I said, all right, bring in, where are my actors? I'm there on time, of course. I've got my script, I've got my tie. Directors wore ties and those. I have a picture proving it. I'm Norman, I have a picture. I'm going to show it to you and me. We're right there, you're there, and I got my tie and I got my script, and I'm pointing the way you're supposed to be pointing. And so and I'm waiting. I said, all right, where are my actors? I have a problem. Problem or problem? Well, wait a while. Wait a while. It's 9 o'clock, whatever time. We were spot on. All right. How long? Well, a while. Wait a minute. What's going on? Well, come on, spit it out. They won't come out of their trailers. 2 people. They played the mother and father. It's the first day. What do you mean they don't come out? I'm part of the cast. Those are my actors. What do you mean? You mean, do you remember the fan? Well, they won't come out of the trailer. They won't speak to each other. They hate each other. There was more going on than that. I mean, so I have to be knock, knock, knock. Ms. So-and-so, knock, knock, knock. Joe, can you? That was my first day on the job. Once I coaxed them and coerced them to come out. That was the beginning of that. That's why I don't overdirect.
And that was AKA Pablo.
Yes.
Did anyone
And
kind
that,
of...
by the way, that wasn't Mr. Rodriguez. Yeah, he was always spot on. You know, I was the co-stars.
Did anyone show you the ropes for directing at all?
I should have been paying more attention, but I didn't. I didn't see that one coming. That was a spitter, as they say, you know. Whoop, hello. That was a knuckleball. Didn't see that one coming. So I learned fast that day. I said, okay, I have to manage this differently. Have 2 people who can't stand each other, and they're supposed to be funny, and they weren't funny. That's a problem. So it's challenging. People skills, it's all about that, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know. And first time I broke out at night when I came home, hi, honey, how'd it go? Broke out in high, so it was red. First time, that's how it went. La vida.
Mm. So you mentioned you were a big fan of radio when you were younger. And in 1988, you took part in the 50th anniversary recreation of the War of the Worlds broadcast. How did that come about?
Norman Corwin. Oh, wow. Well, I was just honored to do it. Went up to Lucas Ranch to do it. And I think Mr. Robarts was there. Yeah. That was quite something. To meet the creator, to meet the writer, Mr. Norman Corwin. It was just wonderful sitting in that kitchen at night and telling stories. the seminal program that it was, the kind of America it was that bought that. The moment that there was panic in a large part of America, thinking that the Martians really had landed in New Jersey, of all places. Why New Jersey? The Martians had landed in New Jersey and they were coming over. Oh my God, the humanity. And people were going nuts. They didn't listen to the header of the program. They said, this is fiction, it is not. And we interrupt this program to let you know what you're listening to is interesting. Mass psychosis. Mass hypnosis for a moment. And we reminisced about that. Of course, talked a lot about theater and television. If I could do it over again, I'd pay more attention. Not quite like Mickey Mantle said. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would take better care of myself. But no, I've taken care of myself very well, thank you. But the history, I've been around I've been very, very lucky. Very lucky.
Do you remember anything about the specific broadcast? I mean, you were there with Steve Allen and Jason Robards.
Well, it's the work, we worked at it assiduously, you know, how serious radio is. I love doing radio. Love it. I did radio as a kid. After I did that okie dokie ranch house business, I morphed to, I started singing with I auditioned for a choir, the Frank Murray Boys Choir. Very famous choir there. That they used to do, whenever you needed boys' voices, you'd pick one or two groups. The Frank Murray Boys Choir was one of them. They did operas, for example. And I remember doing a couple of radio shows and being mesmerized by the sound effects. The doors open, the clippy clop of the horses. I mean, this was not done digitally. There was a guy doing all the Foley, running around. I said, that's what I'm listening. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. So radio, you can be like a shaman, you know. Nobody cares what you look like. It's pure. It tells the story. That's what I liked about it. And that's what we talked about. And that's how we approached the War of the Worlds. I think it was a pretty good job. I think we recreated and even improved it. Of course, technically it was improved. Oh yes, Scott Simon was there. I'll be darned. There's a guy. Terrific. All right, I'm leaving now.
Well, let's move on to, you were nominated for an Emmy for American Playhouse, Mrs. Cage.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that production.
Ms. Bancroft. Real theater person. An actress. Prepared. Annie Italiano, I think her real name was. From the Bronx. Yeah. We're walking into a dressing room, and it was hot. Not dressing room, excuse me, the makeup. It was very, very, very hot. I said, my goodness, I get cold. I said, I could see that. But we struck it off. We rehearsed for a few days. We had to know the piece before we started rehearsing. I mean, essentially, you kind of know it. It's there in the computer somewhere, and the rest, you know, it locks in completely during rehearsal. And she was ready, and the way she approached the scene, there's a way of listening that a good actor has. That doesn't seem like they're listening. I mean, that they're not trying to distract from the scene or anything. But you know, from the way they wait, that split mega moment, or they don't. It's like jazz, you know. You just know it. It's like music. It's the spaces between the notes, you know. And she was one of those. She was a real artist. I loved doing that with her. Loved it. Yeah.
What was the story about?
I believe it was written by a Canadian woman. It was a play originally called Mrs. Cage. It was almost surrealistic. It was it's like almost a tone poem. A lady of a certain age, and life had sort of drifted away in a way that she wasn't aware of, you know. And she commits murder. She commits a crime. seemingly inexplicable. I was the detective, the investigating detective. It was a two-hander. That took a lot of listening to understand. This detective was trying to understand. Just, I have to understand. I can't just, I've got to put this together. Where's the synapse here? Yeah, the motive. And when I realized that it was a slipperier motive, there was no motive. It was something that happened because of the motion, because of her private life and what was unfulfilled. It struck a chord with women, you know, of that generation and of that station in life. Excuse me, I've got to see. Hello, sorry very much. Leave the room for a second. I have to see that again. Yeah, Mrs. Cage. Anyway, it's hard to talk about Anne because it was such a wonderful experience.
And it looked like a really intimate shoot. It's basically just the two of you in a room.
There was no place to hide. It was in headquarters, and you just had a couple of rooms, and we shot it chronologically. That was the interesting thing. And I think the director, it was the first time he shot anything. He was a theater director.
And Robert Allen Ackerman?
That's it, Robert Allen Ackerman. And he would work with the actor beautifully. I mean, it was a three-way effort. And to choreograph that thing slowly around, well, you can't go back. How do you make that interesting? So the camera just inched its way across. We used the whole room. I think it was an hour and a half or something. I wish I could do something like that again. To have the time to work something and refine it. That's a luxury.
Tell us a little bit about the 1992 television movie, Burden of Proof.
Oh, boy. Scott Turow. That was something. I think I had to wear a dog in that. As a matter of fact.
Do you mind I
was in the makeup trailer. Oh, I was in the makeup trailer. And we were at that time, and very, very apologetically, the producer, Robe was his name, Mike Robe. Mike Robe and the other gentleman that worked with him. Getting made up there. He said, would you consider, what? Would you wear a dog? Do I have to? Why? The guy can't be, they had their reasons. Okay, all right, already. I said, the reason, if you're shooting indoors, no problem. You know, a lot of actors wear toupees if they have to, you know. My early acting teacher said, you're lucky you're going to get bald soon. And of course, I was a kid. I was a young 22. What are you talking about? It's the best thing. You'll be able to play all sorts of roles. So, because they were right. He was right. But if you're shooting outdoors, you know, you have to, if the wind blows the wrong way, it's a real problem for hair and makeup, you know. The thing goes here, and heaven help you don't have that stupid tape on. The thing will blow off. You see 3 grown men running down the street chasing this rolling. It's not funny, you know. It's not a good look. So I had to wear a dog for that. Scott Turow is a very wonderful writer and a lawyer. One of the smartest people. Mike was wonderful. The cast was terrific. It was a long, hard shoot. Lots of ladies. Oh, yes, I had romances with 3 or 4 wonderful ladies. What's wrong with that? And then they paid you. I was in Kansas City, was it? Yeah, I think I was in Kansas City. It was cold. Very cold. Lots of jokes I had to tell. The speeches and things. And it was a lot of work and very fulfilling work. I loved it. Brian Dennehy was part of it. Mm-hmm. Front too. Big old Brian, man. Mm-hmm. So it was, give me more of that. ABC, I think it was ABC show. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. Oh, it was wonderful television. Long, hard days, but a good script.
What was the story?
I think this was based on the movie. My character was originally from Argentina. He's a top lawyer. You know what? I forgot the story, come to think of it. I remember the ladies. I remember the ladies very well.
It was another detective kind of plot.
Yeah, yes. But I think I won in the end.
Fantastic. So let's move on to Chicago Hope.
Oh, yeah.
How did that come about? That was in 1994.
Yeah, 1994. Oh, boy. Yes. It was at Fox. It was a real medical show. It was the one that the doctors watched. And interestingly enough, we had doctors there as technical advisors for the operation of the week. You know, they were liver specialists, heart specialists, brain specialists. And they'd come and they'd make sure everything was done according to Hoyle, the correct equipment. We had state-of-the-art equipment there. It was quite a set. And after they finished the scene, they'd hang out. They loved hanging around. They loved being background extras. We couldn't believe it. I said, here you guys are. You have more degrees than a thermometer, and you're hanging around making believe you're making a phone call in the hallway. You know, they loved it. Well, they were enthralled by the environment, a world they didn't know. They were amazed at how many moving parts there were and how intricate it was, and the teamwork. That's what they liked. He says, each group, these are teams of people, and they have their own language, and they never get in each other's way for the most part. In other words, something like an orchestra. You know, they just love that environment. This is what goes into making these things, a movie, essentially. You know? So they were very impressed by that. Some of them just love being actors. Huh? I said, yeah, try it. Try it for a while. You pay your rent, right? Lots of luck. It was a challenge because of the medical stuff. It was real medical jargon. It wasn't about somebody, you know, screwing in the utility closet or something. You know? And with the just because you were wearing you know, your scrubs doesn't make it a medical show. This was about medicine. It was about cutting edge stuff. So we had a wonderful show. Hard work. Oh yeah, Adam Arkin, Manny Patinkin, yeah, Peter Berg. Mm-hmm. It's quite a cast. Well, it's quite a cast. I think it went on 6 seasons.
Yep.
6 seasons. Well, I was proud of that show. Very proud.
Did you specifically have to do any medical research for your role as Dr. Waters?
Yeah, I'm interested in medicine generally. I hung out with doctors, saw some procedures, learned from the doctors over and over again, one way or another. Try not to be in a hospital. You might get sick there. So we try to avoid it. Bacterial infection. They warned us. Watch out for that, man. Make sure you have an advocate. If you have to go there for something serious, don't count on others, strangers. Family or friends have to be there, you know, talking for you, looking out for you. And I had that experience once directly. I was going to have a very minor procedure, you know, in and out one day. And I was about to be wheeled off somewhere. Somebody came into the room with an injection and said, we have to give you this. I said, what is that? Well, it's for the room number. What was that for? And it was a big needle. I said, what is that? He said, yeah, we have to give it to you. It wasn't for me. It was for someone else. If there hadn't been someone in the room there with me, someone that was there who was compos mentis, you know, I was going out, you know, they had been doing the drip and I was slowly going out. They said, wait, hold the phone. It's for the other guy. That's the kind of thing that happened. Mm-hmm. What happened to that scalpel? I had it right here. Oh, it's in there. We zipped them up already. Hello. Mechanics leave screwdrivers, you know. Yeah, it can happen. Mm-hmm. It can happen. Mm-hmm. Have an advocate.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about working with the creator, David E. Kelley.
Well, I don't know it. When you have that kind of fecundity, that, you know, when you have that kind of fertility, you know, I don't know how you channel that, but he does.
He wrote a lot of those scripts himself too, I believe.
Yes, in the beginning especially.
Mm-hmm.
We were always admiring of the work, you know, and the chances he took, the constant search for what makes people tick, the oddities and the wrinkles of a person's personality. You know, it was fascinating to be to be part of that, to be an intermediary between author and audience with that, with that kind of genius. So it was memorable experience, Chicago Hope.
Tell us a little bit about your character, Dr. Philip Waters.
Oh, Philip Waters. Dr. Philip Waters was the head of the hospital. Well, he was the chief of staff. And as chief of staff, you have a lot to do. Mainly, you have to listen a lot. And don't push the envelope, and don't walk around being the boss. If you're the boss, you're the boss. Everybody knows you're the boss. It was not difficult doing the character. What was difficult to do was doing the medical jargon. That's not part of our nomenclature, you know. To rattle this stuff off. So we'd cheat sometimes, yes, we would. There would be little post-its, you know, how do you, that's a long word. And you'd glance at it, that's what it is, yeah. You had to do it or else you wouldn't get through the day, especially if you're giving a speech an hour before. What? Wait a minute.
Was that typical?
You always had to, you were always on your toes in that show. It was true, and we laughed a lot, in spite of the work, because we knew the work was good. That's the good thing.
Was it typical to get script pages late like that, or not so much?
Yeah, you'd get script pages. There was a bit of change. Yikes! And on the spot, you'd have to know it.
Did you have any input into your character, storylines?
Some, but they watch how you're developing it and they start writing for your character. I had some discussions. I helped them some, and they helped me. Yeah, they guided it. Also, what they watch for is your particular the quality that you bring. That again, the camera does that. That ephemeral quality we spoke of. If there's some kind of empathy in your gaze or some kind of danger in your gaze, they'll go with that. Or, whatever the camera picks up that they didn't figure out when they wrote the pilot, that can work for the narrative, they would use it. That's why it was exciting.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it was that you were bringing? Did they gravitate towards anything for you?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I think something rabbinical. I understand. Yes, I know. Meanwhile, I'm thinking of my shopping list. Doesn't matter. It's not. No, I don't know, but I think it was what I knew the camera would ultimately find is some sense of quiet authority with humor. It's the humor, that you can't hide. Even the funniest thing is for me, people who take themselves seriously. That for me is a riot. Really? You really think that about yourself, huh? I don't want to. You're in for a surprise. So I think I brought some of that, and they picked up on it. Again, camera. It's nothing to do with having anything between the ears. You could be a dummy, but if that's part of your stuff that comes out of your pores, you're lucky.
So John Tinker was one of the writer-producers on the show. He'd come from St. Elsewhere, another medical show. Talk a little bit about working with him.
Did I get that?
You're okay.
Oh, Tinker was smart. Smart and bubbly. That's what I recall. Positive and smart and bubbly. Well, forging ahead, and he was just a delightful guy to be around. And he loved to laugh at himself. That's always a pleasure. So I enjoyed working with John Tinker. Hope you're okay, John. Excuse me.
So NBC had ER on the same time that Chicago Hope was on.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Oh, yes. NBC had ER. I remember they had to do it all over again. They wouldn't have had them on at the same time. I mean, to have two medical shows at the same time of that caliber, that's kind of silly. That was a bad call. But while we were doing the upfronts in New York, I got a hint of that decision and how bad a decision it was from a gentleman who was partly responsible for making that decision. And after a couple of wines, he said, "We're going to take them on. We're going to take them on. This is not a horse race like that. We're going to show them who has the biggest timbales." Oh, that's not good business. That's not good business. And it wasn't. two different environments. One was a private hospital, the other was a public hospital. One was this, and the other was, hey man, this is us, the stolid establishment private hospital, doing these deep stories. Two different audiences. And they were on at the same time. But we were going to show them because we're programming choices. It's only everything, right? Let's see. Should I throw the slider now? Okay. So should I give them the high hard one? You have to have someone managing called a catcher, saying, "No, give me this one. Give me this one. Give me that one. Not this one." So somebody wasn't paying attention. That was really a tragedy, I think, because I think we could have been a top show. As it was, we did very well.
When did you first get a sense that the series was a success?
That it wasn't?
That it was a success.
That it
was
wasn't
doing well.
That it wasn't doing well?
Was.
Oh, was. Oh. Well, we knew that it was a success when we started getting the responses from the audience. We knew that CBS was happy. Mm-hmm. We watched it ourselves. We were delighted with what it looked like, what it felt like. We knew that it had legs, that it could, the possibilities for change and growth were there. Mm-hmm. We knew that when they didn't shift us around, I think we were on at the same time, the same night, all the time, weren't we? No, they had to shift us around once because we had to duck the bullet of the other show doing so well. When we were getting the guests in the show that we can get, all the actors wanted to be on the show. We knew that. When it was picked up again, year after year. The only negative part of that show was getting to work. I live in the Valley. Get the 20th Century Fox. It started, I get to work in 18 minutes. By the time we left 6 years later, 6 seasons later, it took almost an hour and 10 minutes if you were lucky to get there. Mm-hmm. Quality of life is everything. So for me now, location is everything. Mm-hmm. First, where is it shooting? Okay, I'll read the script.
So you mentioned guest stars. There were a lot of them over the years.
Yeah,
Any
James
stand
Garner.
out?
James
Yep.
Garner did this. He did a story. He did a nice arc. Mm-hmm. And he had just come out of knee surgery. A lot of pain. But James Garner, always a gentleman. Worked in pain, always. When I first worked with him on one of his shows, not Maverick, it was, what was the other one he did? I went to, was on location, Paradise Cove, drove out there, and I saw these people gathered around this table outside, these guys from the crew, and I saw these legs, and they had a man on the table like that. So what's going on? Jackie was the director. Anyway, I said, what is? Oh, that's James. James on the table. They're putting his knees in place. What? They're getting his knees in place. Oh man! Essentially adjusting his legs, and then wrapping them up. And he'd come up and he'd go. And he had a 14-hour day, man. And we had a scene where we had to do some of this, beat up the bad guys. Oh man! And he had the grace to say, "I'm terribly sorry to hold you up like that. I'm sorry that you had to see that, but that's the way." And they had to shoot him full of painkillers, and that's how we went out all day long. Mm-hmm. Never complained. Mm-hmm. A guy.
Yeah. So back to Chicago Hope for a sec. Being on a weekly series for 6 years, did you find that you got recognized more at that point than you did before?
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, Chicago Hope. Chicago Hope recognition. I used to touch people. I'd lay hands. One time, getting out to a plane, literally. I didn't go out of my way. Didn't do this voluntarily. At first, how do you like that? I'm finally being recognized. Yeah, you like that for about 5 minutes. After that, you put on funny hats and stuff. Yeah, hey, it's a curse. I wish you to have fame for 15 minutes. See how you like it? It's not fun. Not fun. There's nowhere to hide. At least for someone like me. I like to look around. I like to subway, just look at people being people. I like to look at my species being idiotic and wonderful at the same time, you know. I remember about to get on a plane and going down the runway, the ramp to the plane. Lady comes up to me, going swimming against the stream. She said, "Excuse me, Dr. Waters?" Well, well, not doctor. What about what? Please, my father. Could you please see my father? Your father? Yes, he's getting on the plane, and he's had this operation and so, and he just loves your show. Just tell him it's going to be all right. He's feeling terribly anxious. And I wanted to tell her, I'm not a doctor. That happened very quickly. And suddenly there's this gentleman on the train, and he's there. Oh, and he grabs my hand, and he kisses my hand. And I said, I have to say something. And I said, what is it you have? I don't, and I made up something. Do you have atrial fibrillation? It's a word I know. Yes, mm-hmm. And your chart, I knew a couple of things to say. It's going to be all right. Then I said something like that. What can you say? And he was so grateful. He felt so good. What'd you do? Mm-hmm. I was embarrassed. But what are you going to say? I'm not a doctor. I'm just an actor. At that point, you got to go with it, you know. You don't want to burst that bubble. Not for that guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was Dr. Waters here and Dr. Waters there, and then the funny stuff. Hey, Dr. Waters, going to feel my pulse. Feel this over here. Nah, it was all right. They didn't bother you too much. They bother younger actors who want zippy zappy. They don't bother guys like me. They always think I'm somebody else. Weren't you in Superman? No, I wasn't in Superman. Yes, you were. Okay, I was. Do you know who you are? No. Actually, they said, you're Ben Kingsley, right? I said, Sir Ben, please.
So you mentioned some of the cast members earlier. I think Adam Arkin was the only other person besides you on for the full run of the series. Talk a little bit about working with him.
Black Thursday. Black Thursday. They want to meet in your trailer. Who's they? I think it was Delia, a couple of people, you know, who run the show. My trailer. You're going to meet you and Adam and I think there was another actor there. Now remember, our cast consisted of about 6 or 7 people at the time. And yeah, what's this about? We held our breath. Okay. It was a Thursday. I remember that for some reason. Is that right? You're the only ones who've made the cut. What cut? Everybody else is gone. It's a cruel business. It was whack, like that. What? You mean yabbity-beebity-beebity-beebity-boo? Holy mackerel. Yeah. You're the only ones who made the cut. Well, then we knew, maybe there's a little trouble in River City.
So that's the end of season 5.
End of season 5, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And we did season 6. And then came The Millionaire. Remember that? That phenomenon? Everybody was watching The Millionaire. It was a, so what genre is that?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show. What do you call that?
Kind of a trivia game show type thing.
A game show. Mm-hmm. A game show? Who watches game shows? Because it's a game show, okay? I watched 5. That's it? I mean, I like him because he's a terrific guy. That's knocking shows off. It knocked, how many shows it knocked off the air? Everybody was what? It was sitting. It was being paid 3 and 4 times a day. Is that where we are? I mean, the rung is being lowered that way? And it cost 10 cents to make, so what the hell? You know? So we were one of the victims of that. Also, besides the fact that, I'm sure we were an expensive show at that time. You know? So we were gone. Millionaire lived a short life, but a very fat one, as it were. They were having a good time, the Millionaire. Let's rake it in while we can. The Millionaire. We couldn't get over that. I mean, get knocked off by something terrific, but, you know, by a game show? Ouch.
Did you have any favorite episodes or storylines for your character?
I had, yes, my favorite episode, I was having a nervous breakdown. Yes, I was going through hard times. Yes, and he had, David wrote, he says, and he walks into the office, and there you are, sitting at your desk naked. Just sitting at your desk naked. I said, naked? At my desk? Why? Why am I sitting? What? That's one step away from the booby hatch, man. I said, I said, no, we had a discussion about that. Let's do, okay, I'll be naked, but at my desk, sitting there? Something more interesting. We found a way of doing it while I was shaving or something, you know. There I was, and Adam walks in, and I was having a hard time. Speaking rather cogently and placidly, but obviously, I thought I was dressed. I made a mistake. Adam said his character something to the effect of, "You're naked." That was an interesting storyline. Mm-hmm. Being under duress to that extent, emotional duress. Yeah, and my son, losing my son, that was hard. That was very difficult. Got me the Emmy though.
So that was Bridge Over Troubled Waters? That was
Yes. That was difficult for me because you know, I'm a father, and a single father, you know, a single parent. So it was hard. But I went there, and I said, okay, that's your arsenal as an actor, you know, life, stuff that happens if you're paying attention. Stuff that for other people say, I don't want to forget that. Well, guess what? If you're going to be an actor, that's something that you're going to have to use sometime, and it's your little private secret bag of stuff, you know, and you have to know how to press that button and go there.
So you mentioned winning the Emmy. Tell us what that experience was.
Oh, winning the Emmy, that was a confusing thing. You know, I had been nominated twice. I'd gone to to the ceremonies twice, and I didn't expect that one. As a matter of fact, I didn't expect it a lot. Yeah, what I remember more than anything else is, I should have included my dear wife in thanking. And it was all a blur. I wish I could do that over again. That's one of my deep regrets in life, actually. But anyway.
So the show did come to an end after 6 seasons. Were you pleased with how it ended, the story-wise?
I don't remember how it ended. I remember that we all sort of petered out. It was, we weren't happy. It's a difficult thing, you know, knowing that it's over and you have another show to do, or two. Happened to be twice. And you say, okay. Some shows you say, all right, fine, this is finished. Because after all, 6 seasons, you know, it's a very almost unnatural thing to do. I mean, 20-something shows a season, that's a lot of work. Where do you go after that? Depending on the format, it gets almost impossible, because then it starts getting to be thin soup, you know. How do you nurture that? How do you keep that alive? You dissipate it a bit. But there are other shows, like Chicago Hope, where you're really sad that it's over. I was sad.
What do you think is the legacy of Chicago Hope?
The what?
The legacy of the
show. The legacy of Chicago Hope is that you can advance the interest in medicine and tell good human dramatic stories, you know, and it still can be mainly about medicine, and that there are people involved. That's the legacy.
Yeah. Let's talk a little about.
Oh, and one more other thing that's part of the legacy. Excuse me,
Please.
because I think of David Kelly. He's not afraid to raise the rung at his best, you know, if they let him. And I remember someone saying, if I'm talking over your head, look up. I think what David Kelly does.
You said if they let him. Do you know of any censorship issues on the show?
No. I mean, if given full reign, I think, no, there were no censorship issues that I knew of, even though it was network television. You know, we brought it right to the edge. I was naked on the show, for heaven's sake. Not full frontal backle, but you got the idea.
So some of the other projects you did in the 2000s, and starting in 2007, you were on Grey's Anatomy as Carlos Torres.
Oh, yes, Grey's Anatomy. That's interesting. You see, this is a show I never watched, but that's one that I had input on, I must say. They were very nice. People have been there a long time. So, you enter a family as a guest. You're coming into a family unit from the outside. It's a little tricky. You have to know how to handle yourself. You have to be comfortable with yourself. And luckily, I know most of the time when I walk into a new set, I know a lot of people. Hey, Charlie, what do you have? It's crew people, because I'm crew. We're all just working. I looked at the character. I said, we're missing something here. If you hired me, I think you can get another twist to this guy. This guy is too. The guy you wrote is. It's too flat. There's no there. There's no character there. What's his flaw? You hired me. You can bring something else to it. So I sort of nudged it over to a character. A character with a past. A character with a darker past. A character who seems like Uncle so and so, but he works in I think it was a concrete business in Florida. Well, he knows these guys. That makes it interesting. But he loves his daughter, and don't anyone mess with his daughter. And he had a difficulty with the lesbian issue, to say the least. That's fine, but he's got to come around. What's going to be interesting is this guy that you think will never come around comes around and becomes a champion. Now you've got an arc. Now you've got something to do. So you got to dress him differently. You got to notice that there's. What's that ring over here? What's the little gold chain? Something. Just a little hint is on it. Yeah? And so don't make him the generic. I can't stand the word. I don't know what it means. Latino parent. I don't know. That's just too generic. But because they're smart, they listened and they changed the character, and it became an interesting person.
Mm-hmm. And that was a recurring role for you. You've done
Yes.
several episodes.
And that was fine with me. I like that. Another recurring role was, another wonderful one was with, in terms of experience, was with Tony Shalhoub in Monk.
Mm-hmm.
That was wonderful.
Tell us a little about it.
That's all. Tony's, not only is he a pro, and he, like Peter Falk, it's always the first time for him. He wants it done as well as possible. He won't let anything slide. He's one of the most intelligent actors. Talk about listening. He can hear he can hear a fly on the wall. And he'll react to that. It was always a pleasure. Always two-handers. I think I played the psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So talk about listening. And then unfortunately, I took over for a gentleman that had been doing it for a number of years, and he passed away. So I did the last 2 seasons. I was sad that was over. Working with Tony was a delight. I'm looking forward to doing it again. We liked each other very much. Just terrific. Theater guy again, mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And loved by the people he worked with, which is how you can judge it, Didn't stand on ceremony, worked his ass off, and people don't know the kind of wear and tear that kind of work takes. Mm-hmm. It takes a toll. They wanted him to do another, I think he went on for 8 seasons? 6?
Yeah.
8
8 or 9, I
8 or 9
believe.
seasons. They wanted to do another 2. He said, the contract is over, I believe. He said, it's time to move on. Mm-hmm. And of course, he's stayed very busy doing other things, especially theater. He loves theater, as do I. But 8 shows a week, I don't know. I don't have the legs for it.
Tell us about your experience making Kane.
Kane, I loved that show. I loved that show. Luckily, it was at Radford Studios, which is around the corner from me. Location, that was just a fluke. Even though it was an hour show, wonderful cast. Best looking cast I've ever been. Man, there was a lot of good looking people there, man. It was a great environment in terms of the place in American history, this time in America. Florida, wealthy family like the Bacardis, and all that means in terms of a variety of socio-political experiences, the power of that, to see more than an empowered Latino family. Cubans don't think of themselves as Latino, whatever that means. Third generation, people. People who are, who make things happen. It was a terrific set to be on. First of all, there was always espresso, Cuban coffee, always. As soon as you got on the set, somebody came around with Cuban coffee. And little Cuban sandwiches. So there was great aroma. And in between takes, we would be dancing, and everyone knew how to dance on two, the hips were moving cool. And it was a lot of laughs. And Jimmy Smits is just terrific captain. Cared deeply about that show. Deeply, deeply. That must have been very, very painful. Mr. Smits. He was counting a lot on that show being what it could have been. And it was well on its way, I think, to being. And Miss Sidre, the writer, Nina Tassler, CBS. Even though it was an hour, I always looked forward to doing that show. And then came the writer's strike. Don't worry, it's only be a couple of weeks. We'll keep the sets up. It's expensive to keep sets up. It's a couple of weeks. Okay, 2 weeks, another week. 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Well, it's getting shaky. That's it, we can't keep the sets up anymore. It was 3 months of that. And of course, lots of shows went down. And ours was one of them. There you go.
Tell us a little bit about your character. He was kind of the head of the family, Pancho Duque.
Oh yeah, Pancho Duque, yeah. I know that he was another Philip Waters with a slight accent. He was an immigrant. He had come from Cuba, worked his ass off, and created this empire. Yeah. Of course, he was a man who came from the rum. He knew his product, and had this incredible family, and keeping that together, it was Shakespearean. It was operatic in a way. Keeping all those horses and keeping the family unit. And then there was Jimmy Smits, who was really the heir to it all, and whose ties to the family were beyond visceral. Whatever happens, don't mess with my family. And there was a little darkness there, but nothing untoward. It's interesting how people didn't want to see Mr. Smits in that kind of role. And as an actor, I could see that you would salivate to do something like that, with that nuanced side, that complexity. That's what you want to do. And he was perfect. But circumstances. That strike, I think, was the nail in the coffin.
Rita Moreno?
That was sad. That would really made me sad. To this day, maybe that's why I blocked it out. And then never got a chance to talk to Jimmy at length about it. Hope he's okay.
He was one of the executive producers of the show as well.
Yes, worked very, very hard.
And you worked with Rita Moreno as your wife?
Oh yeah, looking forward to working with her for a long time. And talking about someone who's forgotten more than she knows. It's quite a piece of theater, movie, and television history, that lady, the embodiment of it. Oh yeah. She was, she exuded also a certain time, a certain time in our industry. A woman who took all the shots and all the blows, and not only survived, but did very well, but succeeded by being herself all the time, by being who she is, by her character. I was very, very pleased and proud to work with her, and I hope she's well.
So having worked on Papi and AKA Pablo, where do you think Kane kind of fit in as a show centering on a Latino family?
Oh, that was more like it. It was truer. It was of its time. It was very timely. Maybe that was the problem. They were talking about Cuba and politics and doing business with Cuba. You know, that was ahead of time. And of course, we should have been doing business with Cuba a long time ago, but that's something else again. But we know why we didn't do that. It's called South Florida. But, you know, so it was, that was a well-planned endeavor, that show. Beautifully written. And you had the right people, you had the right horses in the right stall, you know. So that's why we were all looking forward every day to going to work.
And then since 2011, you've played Ed Alzate.
Ed
on
Alzate.
Last Man Standing.
Ed Alzate. How did he become Ed Alzate on Last Man Standing? I said, who is this guy? What's his last name? This is before. His last name is Fovish something. I said, guys, should we make him this, that? I said, let's not make him generic. Wait a minute. Let's make him Basque. Half the people never heard of Basques. Basques, separate people, separate language. They're not Spanish. They live in Spain. Most of them rather not, for reasons that I don't agree with, by the way. And they have unpronounceable names. They have an archaic language. They had a charter 500 years before the Magna Carta. They had a charter. So the oldest people in Europe. 89% of Basque men have Celtic DNA. So you see, they're an ancient people, you know, and it's not a Latin language, and it's not Germanic. Not Latin, not Germanic. What the hell? You know, what is it? They don't know. It's the great mysterious people of the earth are the Basque people. They do know this: physically very strong. They are great cooks. They are master cooks, especially the men. It's all about, there's a religion. Catholicism is one of them, and the other one is cooking and eating. You know, Basques are Basques. You know, great fishermen, cod fishermen especially. They were famous for going out further than anybody. They know seafood to the degree that they will sell. And when you go to the market in San Sebastian, you see the fish, hooked fish caught with a hook and fish caught with a net. The fish that are caught with a hook costs more. Fish caught with a net are traumatized. They've been drowned. You know, fish caught with a hook die quicker, so that there's no toxin in the meats, and they know the difference. These are folks. That's why the French, there's the Spanish Basque and there's French Basque. Biarritz is, you know, on the French side. So Basque nation is one nation. The French come to the Spanish side to eat. That's how good it is. Exquisite, but very, very fancy. Almost beyond, it's an eating laboratory. So the Basques are particular people. Somewhat nationalistic, I think. They're autonomous now, you know. They have their own. Basque is the first language spoken there. Spanish is the second, and French is the third. They control their destiny. So why get it? Why ask for independence? Independence from what? Anyway, that's another subject. So I said, let's make them Basque. She's American. Basques have been here forever. You know, third generation Basque. We'll come up with a name that goes, should be short. Ed Dabari, Ed Daradada, Jeb Daradan. I looked at my Basque, looked at names. I was like, Ed, I was like, that sounds good. If there's a Z in it, it's probably Basque. Z's and X's. You know? Es que ricasco. Es que ricasco means thank you in Basque. That sounds like nothing. That sounds like rock talk. That's Basque. Ain't Spanish. Well, it's Basque. So I said, here's the book. Read the book by Krolansky. A Basque history of the world, it's called. So to their credit, they said, that's good, Basque. So we made a couple of references to the Bastille and a couple of jokes, too. And that's how Ed Alzate came to be. So yes, I had some input there.
Mm-hmm.
And having fun on the show, by the way.
Great. Had you worked with Tim Allen before?
No, I haven't had the pleasure. But we're looking forward to perhaps another season, perhaps season 5, with great anticipation.
So you had mentioned when you worked with Paul Rodriguez, difficulties of maybe working with a stand-up comic. Did you find any of that with Tim Allen?
But Tim is just not fresh off the boat with that.
Right.
You know, he's done a lot of acting, And he's a damn good actor. I don't think he's given enough credit. He's, of course, he's very, very funny man, very smart man, but he's had experience. He's done movies and television and a lot. So he's gone through the process. Mm-hmm. No problem at all. And he loves working. He's got this energy, which is admirable. There you have it. Mm-hmm. But interesting, all comics have one thing I find, working with Robin Williams and all, may he rest in peace, very private men who have a streak of loneliness, I found,
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the ridi pagliacci, But that's what makes them interesting.
So we want to talk a little bit about the voiceover work that you've done. You've done a
Yes.
lot of voiceovers.
Yes.
What do you enjoy about that?
When I have chords, yeah. I started doing that in New York, I believe in the 70s. Little did I know that that could be a career. It's a very tight circle, And I was fortunate enough not to have a particular vocal operation. I lost my voice a few times on stage. Overuse, misuse, 8 shows a week, long runs, 9 months, 8 shows a week, more than 3 shows I've done like that. And one time I had to smoke on stage, and from smoking, and anyway, lost my voice. And I started getting these little polyps there. And scar tissue formed. I'd have to go on R&R, vocal R&R for a while, 2-3 weeks at a time without speaking, only pad. Not a good thing. Finally, while I was doing a play here from Broadway, we were doing Sly Fox with George C. Scott. Scott, that was a great actor. Scott, the great Scott. Lost my voice. Oh my gosh. Well, here, low talking. Sounded like Aldo Ray, I went to the doctor, the fancy doctor. He said, you have scar tissue and we can fix and we can do and we can, Said, it sounds delicate to me. What if it doesn't work? Oh, it works most of the time. What's most of the time? 92, 5. I says, it's that 3 or 4% that I don't like. Fortunately, I did not have the operation, which gave me this gravelly sound. It's a very distinctive sound. And that's what made me, I have that to bring to the table when I do narrations and or voiceovers. Right now, it's a little more tired than I want it to be. But when I have my chops, it's the sound that I sell. Go figure. And I love to do radio. I love to do narrations. They're fun.
What do you like?
Reading a book takes a long time, but a good narration is a wonderful thing, especially if it's a subject, if it's about wildlife. I love wildlife.
That's great. Let's take a break there.
Let's go. Speaking of wildlife.